I used to think my life was finally settling into place. You're working too hard again, Lena said as we sat in the cafe, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup. When are you going to stop waiting for everyone else and start living for you? I smiled, but it felt tight. I want things to be right, I admitted. With Evan, with work, everything. She shook her head. You've been waiting too long, and it's killing you. I laughed softly, not fully believing her. At home, Evan greeted me with a smile, slipping an arm around my waist. Long day? He asked. Yeah, but manageable, I said, leaning into him. You look tired, he teased, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I'll take care of you tonight, he said, and I felt my heart lift, even if part of me wondered if it would ever be enough. Work was another battlefield. Mr. Caldwell barked orders from across the office, never acknowledging the late nights or the extra effort I put in. This report should have been on my desk yesterday, he said, glancing at me as if I were invisible. I'll have it ready by tonight, I murmured, biting back frustration. My coworkers whispered, but no one stood up for me. Still, I stayed quiet. I needed this job, even if it reminded me daily of how expendable I felt. Later I called Lena again. I don't know how you do it, I said. How do you stay so free? She laughed. You'd be surprised what happens when you stop waiting for permission to exist. I thought about that as I cooked dinner for Evan. I wanted to be perfect for him, hoping my efforts would make him see me the way I saw him. Did you finish your project today? He asked, sitting at the counter. Almost, I replied, stirring the sauce slowly. Want me to help you relax? His hand brushed mine and I nodded, pretending not to notice the little ache that had been forming in my chest, the one that whispered I was giving too much of myself away. That night, as I lay in bed next to him, I stared at the ceiling. I told myself everything was fine, that this fragile balance I'd built was enough. I had my love, my friends, my work, my little world of waiting. Yet a small voice inside me whispered that calm was only skin deep, that the life I cherished might not survive the storms I could not yet see. And still I closed my eyes, hoping the world wouldn't notice how fragile I truly was. I never thought I'd hear those words from him. I was supposed to be asleep, but the hallway was too quiet, and something pulled me out of bed. I pressed my ear to the slightly open door and froze. I can't believe she still doesn't see it, Evan whispered. Maya, she understands me. She gets what I need. My chest tightened. You're with her. I didn't move. My heart felt like it was cracking. I told you, he said to someone I hadn't expected. Maya herself, right there in the dimly lit apartment. She's too slow, too patient. Always waiting for me to come around. You know how it is. With Maya it's easy. No drama. My knees buckled. I sank against the wall, trying to make sense of the betrayal. I had given him everything, my time, my love, my trust, and it wasn't enough. The next morning, I waited until he left for work. I needed answers even if they hurt. Evan, we need to talk, I said when he returned. His smile was casual, but I didn't allow it to fool me. I thought we'd talk later, he said, shrugging. Later isn't good enough. He paused, sighing like I was a burden. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, he finally said. But maybe you should have known. You're too passive. Always waiting. I needed someone who could keep up, not someone always standing still. My mouth went dry. You're blaming me? I whispered. You lied. You cheated. And you blame me. His voice trailed off. I don't know if this is your fault, but I can't be with someone who won't fight for herself. The coldness in his words cut deeper than silence ever could. I felt small, invisible, like everything I had done was worthless. Lena barged in before I could lose myself completely. Come on, we're leaving, she said, grabbing my hand. No, I need to hear this, I whispered, and she froze. I need to know what you've done to me. You need to let it go, she said, but I couldn't. I stayed, paralyzed, listening as he made excuses and justified his betrayal. I had helped Maya when she first joined the office, and now she was the reason my life felt hollow. I never wanted to hurt you, he said finally, but I felt nothing. I walked out hours later, silent tears streaking my face. Lena stayed beside me, but I was trapped in that moment where love turned into regret. Every step felt heavy, every thought sharp. I realized then, fully and painfully, that trusting blindly had cost me everything I had worked for. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days. The first morning my phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but the name Mom made me pick up. "Honey, are you okay?" Her voice was soft, full of concern. I don't know," I whispered, looking at the ceiling. "I thought I could handle everything, and now—" My voice broke and she didn't interrupt. "Remember who you are," she said finally. "You always dreamed bigger than this. Don't let this pain make you forget that." I wanted to believe her, but it felt impossible. Work felt like a war zone. I watched Maya walk past me in the hall, her smile smug. "Looks like someone finally got the promotion," I muttered under my breath. She didn't hear me, but I knew Evan had played a part in it. The anger bubbled inside me, sharp and terrifying. I clenched my fists at my desk. "I can't believe I helped her," I muttered, feeling a shiver of rage. But even as I felt it, a part of me was scared, afraid that my anger would swallow me whole. I called Lena in the evening. "I feel like I'm disappearing," I said, my voice trembling. Like nothing I did mattered. She was quiet for a moment. "You're not disappearing. You're just letting go of what didn't belong to you," she said. "But I still love him," I admitted, though saying it made me feel weaker. "Even after everything?" she asked. I didn't answer. How could I explain that my heart refused to let go even when my mind screamed? That night I sat on my bed, staring at the city lights, replaying every conversation I had with Evan. Every laugh, every promise, every moment I thought I mattered, it felt like lies now. I asked myself, am I weak for still loving someone who destroyed me? I hated that I even had to ask. I hated the ache that lingered in my chest, the emptiness that followed me through the apartment. I cried silently, the tears streaming down my face, and for the first time in days, I admitted the truth to myself. Waiting hadn't protected me. It hadn't shielded me from betrayal or heartbreak. It had erased me. The girl who had been patient, who had trusted blindly, was gone. I took a deep breath, trembling, and whispered to the empty room, "I can't do this anymore. I have to find myself again." And in that moment I realized that the first step wasn't about revenge or love, or even forgiveness. It was about picking myself up finally, and deciding that I mattered enough to stand on my own. I couldn't believe what just happened in that meeting. "This is exactly what I wanted," Mr. Caldwell said, leaning back in his chair, his eyes gleaming. "Excellent work as always," he added, taking credit for my project. I froze, my mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. "Excuse me," I finally said, voice tight. "This was my work. He waved me off. "We'll discuss this later," he said, dismissing me like I didn't exist. I felt heat rise to my face, humiliation bubbling up. I sat at my desk for a moment, staring at the screen I had poured myself into. I could apologize, say nothing, swallow my pride, but I couldn't. "I'm done," I muttered to myself, standing up and walking out. Each step felt heavy, terrifying, but at the same time it was liberating. I didn't look back. Outside, the city air hit me like a wave. I leaned against the building, heart racing. "What am I doing?" I whispered. "Do I even have the right to just walk away?" I heard a familiar voice. "You have more right than anyone, trust me." I turned and saw Iris, smiling with calm confidence. "Iris?" I asked, startled. "I thought you left this place years ago." "I did," she said, crossing her arms. "And I built my life somewhere I'm appreciated. You? You're still here, fighting to survive in a place that doesn't see your worth." I looked down, ashamed. "I don't know how to start over," I admitted, my voice breaking. She crouched slightly to meet my eyes. "You start by believing you can. Stop waiting for validation from people who don't care. That's your first step." Her words struck me harder than I expected. "But what about him? About everything I left behind?" I asked, voice trembling. "If it's broken, it's broken," she said softly. "Do you want to rebuild your life or spend it patching someone else's mistakes?" I bit my lip, thinking about Evan, about Maya, about every betrayal. The anger was still there, simmering, and the temptation to strike back whispered in my mind. "Are you thinking revenge?" Iris asked, reading me like a book. I nodded slightly. "Maybe, but it feels wrong and it feels right at the same time." She shook her head gently. "Focus on yourself. Start small. Build your boundaries. Choose you first always." The rest will follow. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, letting her words sink in. I can't keep waiting, I whispered to myself. I can't keep letting people decide if I matter. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of clarity, a tiny spark of courage. I didn't know what the next step would be, whether I'd disappear quietly or fight in my own way, but I made one promise. I would stop waiting for people to choose me. I'll figure it out, I said aloud, more to myself than to her. Iris smiled. That's all you need to say right now. I nodded, feeling something shift inside me. The fear was still there, but so was determination. My life was mine to reclaim, and I was finally ready to take that first step. I stared at my inbox, seeing another freelance rejection, and groaned. How am I supposed to make this work? I muttered to myself, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The phone buzzed. Iris's name flashed. Don't give up, she said, voice calm but firm. You're learning. Every mistake is progress. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I feel like I'm failing constantly. I can't even keep up with simple deadlines. Then start smaller, she said. Break it down. Show your skills, don't hide them. You're better than you think, but you have to believe it first. I listened, nodding even though she couldn't see me. I'm trying, I whispered. It's just hard. Later, I spilled coffee over my notes, muttering curses. See, I said aloud. Even I can't handle this. Iris laughed softly through the phone. Mess-ups happen. The question is, do you give up or keep moving? I clenched my fists. I'll keep moving, I said, a little louder, trying to convince myself as much as her. Then I ran into Evan at a cafe. You're freelancing now? He asked, masking surprise with a half-smile. I forced a neutral tone. Trying. It's different. He studied me, but I could see the faint tension behind his mask. I guess things didn't go as planned, I said softly. He didn't answer immediately. Not everything, he said finally. There was a flicker of something, unease, maybe guilt, but he hid it quickly. I'm managing, I said, swallowing the sudden lump in my throat. You. He hesitated. Fine, he said, voice too quick. I nodded, sensing the imbalance. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness, knowing my life was finally shifting. Yet the old hurt still lingered in my chest. Back home, I set up my workspace. I can do this, I whispered, staring at the blank page on my screen. Each project felt like climbing a mountain, but I refused to look down. Every completed task, no matter how small, reminded me that I was slowly building myself again. Iris called later. You sound more confident, she said. I laughed softly. Maybe a little. But it's exhausting. I doubt myself constantly. She chuckled. That's normal. Growth isn't linear. You're learning to stand on your own. I paused, letting that sink in. I think. I'm finally seeing it, I said. I'm not healed, but I'm not broken either. At least, not in the same way. Every night, I forced myself to review what I'd done that day. Small wins, I whispered. They add up. Each rejection, each mistake, each minor success reminded me that I could survive without someone constantly validating me. I began to feel a strange pride, fragile but real. I could exist without leaning on anyone, and slowly the fear of failure lost its grip. By the end of the week, I looked at my reflection and smiled faintly. I'm still me, I said. Stronger than yesterday, and tomorrow even stronger. The road was long, and the sadness still lingered, but I had learned to carry it without letting it break me. I was starting to stand on my own, and for the first time in months that felt enough. I was on the phone with Lena when she dropped the news. Maya's drowning, she said, voice tight. The promotion she got? She can't handle it. Everyone's noticing, and she's panicking. I leaned back, heart twisting. She's not ready? I asked softly. Lena laughed, but it was bitter. Not even close. And Evan's spinning too, trying to cover for her mistakes. He's sweating, but he's pretending everything's fine. I closed my eyes, letting the information settle. Should I don't know, do something? I asked. Lena's sigh came through the phone. No. Just watch. It's not yours to fix. I hung up and walked through the quiet streets thinking. My chest ached, a mix of lingering hurt and the faint flicker of satisfaction. I shook my head. I shouldn't enjoy this, I whispered aloud. but maybe I deserve to see some balance. The next morning Daniel called. "I'd like you to handle the project," he said, voice calm and precise. "I've seen your work. You have the skill. And I want someone who can execute without excuses." My heart leapt. I can do that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I won't disappoint you." "You won't," he said. "Just be honest with me. That's all I ask." I smiled faintly, feeling a weight lift. For the first time I was being valued for what I could do, not who I had been or how much I had waited. "I appreciate that," I whispered. "I really do." Later I sat in my tiny apartment, reviewing the project details. I could feel the power shift subtly around me. Maya's name floated through my mind, and Evan's image flashed too, both struggling quietly while I carved my own path. I debated my own feelings. Am I being cruel? I asked myself. Am I enjoying their misfortune too much? I shook my head. No, I'm not interfering. I'm just alive while they're learning the hard way. The phone buzzed again. It was Lena. "How's the project?" she asked. I smiled, a little brighter this time. "Challenging but good. I feel like someone finally trusts me for me." Lena chuckled. "About time. You've earned it. Don't forget, growth comes quietly. It's not about them, it's about you." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I think I'm starting to understand that. I worked late into the night, reviewing every line of code, every detail. Daniel's feedback was precise but respectful, and I felt a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. "I'm finally being recognized," I murmured. Not for waiting, not for pleasing, just for me. And yet, the thought of Evan struggling lingered, prickling at me. I told myself firmly, this isn't about revenge. I'm not the one causing their downfall. I'm just moving forward. I could watch without acting, feel satisfaction without guilt, and hold my dignity intact. That night I closed my laptop and stretched. "I can do this," I whispered. "I can grow without needing anyone's permission, without needing revenge. That's power, real power." And for the first time in months I felt it, not fragile, not fleeting, but steady and entirely my own. I got the call in the middle of the morning. "We'd like you to lead this project," the client said, voice calm and firm. "It's a major initiative, and it directly competes with Caldwell Industries. We think you're the right person for it." I felt my stomach tighten with excitement and nerves. I'm honored," I said. "I'll give it everything I have." "That's what I expected," he said, a faint smile in his tone. "I know you will." Later that week I walked into a networking event and froze for a second. Mr. Caldwell was there, smug as ever, shaking hands and smiling. I felt a flicker of fear but pushed it down. I approached him calmly. "Mr. Caldwell," I said, voice steady. "Good to see you." He blinked at me. "Oh, hello. I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm leading a project that overlaps with your company," I said, letting the words land. He swallowed, eyes narrowing. "Impressive," he said, but there was no warmth, only surprise. I smiled faintly, nodding. "Thank you. It's been a learning experience." Later that evening, Evan called. "I heard about the project," he said, voice carefully light. "Are you okay handling it?" I paused. "I'm more than okay," I said firmly. "I've been preparing for this for months." "Good," he said, but I caught the desperation beneath the surface. I wanted to make sure you weren't overextending yourself," he added, but it sounded hollow. "I appreciate your concern," I said, keeping my boundaries firm. "But I can handle this on my own." We ended the call, and I stared at my reflection in the window. I wanted closure, an apology, an explanation, something to mark the end of what Evan had broken. "Why can't I just get that?" I muttered, feeling the tension in my chest. Then I realized something. Power isn't about confrontation. It's not about forcing someone to admit their mistakes or begging for closure. Power comes from walking forward unshaken, without needing their validation. I let out a slow breath. "I don't need answers," I whispered. "I just need to succeed on my terms." The following week I sat with my new team, planning every detail meticulously. "We'll take this step by step," I said, feeling the authority in my voice. "Everyone has a role, and I trust you to execute it." They nodded, and for the first time I felt the shift fully. I was in control, steering the project, and no one could undermine me. A news alert popped up on my phone. Caldwell Industries was facing delays on a competing project, and I felt a strange mix of vindication and calm. I didn't gloat. I simply recognized that the balance had shifted. My effort, skill, and focus had earned me this. At night, I sat quietly, replaying the interactions with Caldwell and Evan. I didn't feel triumphant in the way I once imagined. I felt steady, centered. I didn't need confrontation, nor did I need explanations. I had boundaries, confidence, and a growing sense of emotional maturity. I can finally stand without them controlling my story, I whispered to the empty room. I don't need approval. I don't need their acknowledgement. I just need myself. And for the first time I felt it. Real power, earned through patience, restraint, and believing in my own worth. I smiled faintly, letting it settle in, knowing that this was only the beginning of everything I could achieve. I didn't expect him to call, not after everything. The phone rang and my chest tightened. Hello, I said cautiously. It's me. Evan, he said, voice low, hesitant. Can we talk? I hesitated, but curiosity won. Okay, I said. Go ahead. I messed up, he started, and I stayed silent, listening. Everything fell apart after you left. My career stalled, my relationships, everything I thought I had under control collapsed. And I lost control. I felt the familiar ache in my chest, but this time it didn't twist me. I see, I said softly. That sounds difficult. It is, he admitted. I didn't realize how much I depended on you, how much I took for granted. And now, his voice faltered. I regret it all. I kept listening, letting him speak, because I realized I didn't need to interrupt. His pain was real, but it didn't have power over me anymore. I can hear that, I said quietly. I hope you figure out how to move forward. I wish I could apologize properly, he said. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it. I swallowed hard. I understand, I said. And I did. But I also knew I wasn't going to let this conversation undo the work I'd done to rebuild myself. His regrets were his, not mine to carry. He went on, telling me about Maya's struggles at work, how she was finally facing consequences for her incompetence and manipulation. It's all falling apart, he said bitterly. I thought I could protect her, and me. But nothing worked. I see, I repeated. And again I felt a strange clarity, a lightness in my chest. I didn't rejoice in their failure. I simply acknowledged the natural consequences. Karma wasn't my doing, and yet it felt right, balanced, inevitable. There was a pause. Are you okay? He asked cautiously. I am, I said. I'm not perfect, and it's not easy, but I'm stronger than I was. I've learned that I don't need anyone's validation to feel whole. Wow, he whispered. You sound different. Like you've changed. I have, I said simply. Leaving wasn't just about leaving you. It was about finding myself. About choosing my life. He was silent for a long moment, and I realized that even though I wasn't fully forgiving him, I was letting myself release the weight of our past. I hope you find your own clarity, I said finally. Thanks, he said quietly, voice tinged with shame and relief. I deserved this. I think we all do, I replied. Sometimes it just takes losing what we had to understand what really matters. After the call, I sat back staring at the ceiling. I didn't feel the pain I once would have. Instead, I felt reborn, steady and unshaken. The clarity of my own growth washed over me. I had been crushed, humiliated, and heartbroken, but now I was free. I looked at my email and saw Daniel's note about the project, confirming a successful milestone. I smiled faintly. This is mine, I whispered. Everything I've worked for, without anyone else's interference. And in that moment I realized something profound. Power wasn't revenge and success wasn't cruelty. It was living fully, without letting others' failures or regrets control my heart. I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights, and thought about who I used to be. I used to wait for everything, I whispered to myself. Waiting for him, waiting for approval, waiting for life to hand me what I wanted. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. I thought patience would save me. I thought it would protect me. The phone buzzed. It was Mom. Hey honey, how's your evening? she asked, voice warm and familiar. I'm thinking a lot, I admitted. About me. About who I was. I know, she said softly. You've been through a lot. But remember, growth often comes from loss. Losing what you thought you needed makes space for what you actually do. I'm trying to see it that way, I said. But sometimes it feels like I'm walking through a fog, trying to figure out who I am without letting the past define me. You're finding yourself, she replied. And you're stronger than you know. You're learning to set boundaries to honor yourself. That's the most important part. I smiled faintly, feeling a small warmth inside. I think I understand now. I don't need to wait for someone else to decide if I'm worthy. I can choose for myself. Later, Daniel called. How's the project going? He asked. It's going well, I said, feeling steady. I appreciate your trust, but I want you to know I'm handling it as an equal. I don't need you to fix things for me. I wouldn't dream of it, he said, a faint laugh in his voice. I'm here as a partner, not a savior. I felt a strange comfort in that. For the first time, I had someone beside me who respected my independence, who valued me without trying to control or rescue me. Thank you, I said softly. That matters more than you realize. As I closed the call, I reflected on the boundaries I'd begun to enforce, at work, in relationships, even in small day-to-day decisions. I no longer answered emails immediately if I didn't have to. I didn't let people overstep my personal time. I said no when I needed to, even if it felt uncomfortable. I am learning, I whispered. I am learning that my time, my energy, my heart, they belong to me first. I thought about Evan and Maya, about the old versions of myself who would have pleaded for their acknowledgement, forgiven too quickly, or tolerated betrayal silently. I didn't feel anger now, only clarity. I don't need them to validate me, I said to the empty room. I don't need them to complete my story. I looked at my reflection in the glass and saw someone different. A woman who had been hurt, yes, but who had rebuilt herself piece by piece. You're not the girl who waited blindly anymore, I whispered. You're someone who acts, who chooses, who lives on her own terms. The city hummed around me, indifferent and vast, but I felt rooted. Pain had reshaped my values, teaching me that patience without action was weakness, that love without respect was dangerous. I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. I am enough, I said. I am enough for myself, and that's the only approval I need. And for the first time, I truly believed it. The offer came late in the afternoon, the kind of call that could change everything. We'd like you to handle this, the client said, voice steady. It could give us a major advantage over Caldwell Industries. Significant losses on their end. I felt my stomach twist. I see, I said cautiously. You're aware of the potential impact? Absolutely, he said. We're giving you the choice, but we trust your judgment. It's entirely up to you how you proceed. I hung up and stared at the wall, heart hammering. My mind replayed every insult, every betrayal, every moment of humiliation I had endured under Caldwell and Evan. I could make them pay, I whispered to myself. I could finally show them the consequences of underestimating me. But then a quieter voice inside spoke, the one I had worked so hard to listen to. Do you want revenge, or do you want freedom? I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, breathing slowly. I want them to feel what I felt, I admitted aloud. But immediately I winced at the admission. That wasn't me anymore. That wasn't the woman who had rebuilt herself from the ashes. I called Lena. I don't know what to do, I said. I have a chance to hurt them, and part of me wants to take it. You've worked too hard to fall back into that trap, she said firmly. Ask yourself this, do you want to be defined by their downfall, or by your growth? Her words sank in, heavy and sharp. I thought about Daniel, about the boundaries I had built, about the woman who no longer waited for approval or validation. I whispered to myself, I want to be defined by my choices, not my anger. Hours passed. I poured a glass of water, then another, pacing the apartment. I imagined the satisfaction of revenge, the thrill of seeing Caldwell stumble, of Evan's desperation. And I felt hollow. There was no victory there, only an echo of the old pain. I sat at my desk staring at my laptop. I typed a message to the client. I'll take the project, I wrote carefully, but I won't exploit weaknesses to hurt anyone. I want to focus on growth, not retaliation. I paused, rereading it, and let out a long breath. This is me. This is my choice. The next morning, I walked past Caldwell's building on my way to a meeting. I felt a flicker of the old fear, the old resentment, but I let it pass. I don't need to prove anything to him, I whispered. I'm not defined by his failures or successes. At lunch, Daniel called. How's everything going? He asked. Good, I said, steady. I'm making decisions that align with my future, not my past. That feels right. He chuckled softly. I'm glad to hear it. That's the way forward. Conscious, not reactive. I leaned back, feeling a strange sense of peace. The temptation to strike, to punish, to retaliate had been strong, but I had resisted. I had chosen integrity over destruction, freedom over anger. I whispered to the quiet room. This is strength. This is power. And it's mine. For the first time, I didn't need revenge to feel whole. I didn't need to punish anyone to feel victorious. I had tested my strength, faced my darker impulses, and emerged unbroken, free to shape the life I wanted without the chains of the past. I poured my coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. It feels normal, I whispered to myself. Not the old normal, the one where I waited for approval or panicked over what I couldn't control. This was different. Steady, quiet, and mine. My phone buzzed. Lena's name flashed. Hey, I said, smiling. I just wanted to tell you. She began, voice soft. I'm proud of you. Really proud. You've changed so much. I felt a warmth bloom in my chest. Thanks, Lena. That means a lot. I didn't do it for praise, but hearing it, it feels good. You deserve it, she said. You've worked hard to stand on your own, to set boundaries, to be you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I think I'm finally learning what that means. That my worth isn't measured by how much I give, or how much others notice. Later, I met Iris for lunch. You look calm, she said, studying me over her tea. I've been watching. You've come a long way. I have, I admitted. I still remember the pain, the betrayal, the waiting, but it doesn't define me anymore. That's growth, she said simply. Not perfection, but progress. You've stopped rushing toward validation and stopped fearing abandonment. That's rare. I smiled faintly. I'm learning to enjoy the small victories. Not the big flashy ones that make people look at me, but the steady, quiet ones that make me feel competent and alive. At work, Daniel praised a report I'd submitted. Excellent as always, he said. Your consistency is impressive. Thanks, I said, feeling calm pride instead of the old anxious need for approval. I'm learning to trust the process, not just the results. Walking home later, I passed a cafe where Evan and Maya might have been. I didn't look. I didn't need to. Their presence held no power over me. I'm free of that, I whispered. I don't need to compare, compete, or prove myself anymore. At night, I sat on my balcony again, watching the lights flicker across the skyline. I thought about everything, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the mistakes I'd made. And I felt peace. Not perfect peace, but enough. Enough to know I could handle whatever came next. I texted Lena, dinner soon? I want to celebrate the little wins. She replied almost instantly. Absolutely. You've earned them. I laughed softly, shaking my head. I've earned them, I said aloud, leaning back. Not rushing, not striving for someone else's measure of success. Just living quietly, fully on my own terms. And for the first time in years, I felt complete, not because the past had been erased, but because I had claimed my present. The pain was still there, a faint shadow, but it no longer directed my life. I was finally winning without rushing, and that was more than enough. I sat on my balcony, the city lights flickering like tiny reminders of how far I'd come. I used to wait. I whispered to myself, the words tasting strange on my tongue. Wait for him, wait for approval, wait for life to decide my worth. And I lost myself in the waiting. My phone buzzed. Lena's name flashed. Evening, I said, smiling faintly. Hey, she replied warmly. Just checking in. How are you feeling tonight? Reflective, I admitted. Thinking about me. About who I was and who I've become. I'm proud of you, she said softly. You stopped waiting. You stopped hoping that someone else would decide your value. I felt a small heat rise in my chest. It wasn't easy, I said. I stumbled a lot. I felt anger, sadness, even the urge to strike back. But I realized none of that was my power. My real victory wasn't in hurting anyone. It was in standing for myself. I remember telling you that once, she said. That growth isn't revenge. And look at you now, you've built a life on your own terms. I laughed softly. I think I finally understand. Rebirth isn't about destruction. It's about awakening. About recognizing that my life is mine to shape, and that my worth isn't tied to anyone else's choices. Later, Daniel called. Project's going well, he said. You're handling everything smoothly. I'm impressed. Thanks, I said, calm and steady. I'm learning that success isn't measured by others' reactions. It's about consistency, integrity, and knowing my own value. After I hung up, I leaned back, letting the quiet settle around me. I thought about Evan, about Maya, about the pain I once carried. I didn't feel triumph in their misfortune, just clarity. The past had shaped me, yes, but it no longer dictated me. I honor her, I whispered to the empty room, thinking of the woman I used to be. The one who waited, who hoped, who loved blindly. She taught me patience, but she also taught me my limits. Now, I choose myself. I looked at the skyline and smiled faintly. The victories were quiet. Steady growth, respect for myself, the confidence to move forward without fear. I didn't need apologies, explanations, or revenge. I had my own life and I was finally living it fully. I am enough, I whispered, the words solid, unshakable. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need anyone else's validation. I've stopped waiting, and in doing so I've won. Not over them, but over my past self, over the fears that held me back. And that is everything. The city hummed around me, indifferent but steady, just like me. I closed my eyes, breathing in the quiet triumph of self-respect, and let the moment sink in. This was my victory. Mine alone, earned without haste, without cruelty, and entirely on my terms.